Om Vande Shambhumumapatim Suragurum Vande Jagatkaranam Vande Pannagabhushanam Sesidaram Vande Pasunam Patim Vande Surya Shashanka Vanninayanam Vande Mukunda Priyam Vande Bhaktajana Asrayancha Varadam Vande Bhaktajana Asrayancha Varadam Vande Shivam Shankaram. Friends, Swami Vivekananda is a yogi. He is of very sharp intellect. Many people are of the opinion that Swami Vivekananda is born with the sharp intellect of Adi Shankara. This intellect becomes the bright intelligence, and that intelligence becomes intuitive, and that intuitive mind or intellect will find the absolute truth, and that discovery of truth is Jnana Yoga. In simple terms, Jnana is knowledge. Knowledge of physics, knowledge of chemistry, knowledge of mathematics. When we have the knowledge of a particular subject, what is the benefit? We are not afraid of that subject. We will be in a position to face any question, any time, anywhere in that subject because of our thoroughness. Similarly, when we understand the subject of life and death, we will have the absolute knowledge of the truth behind. When we know what life is, when we have the knowledge of what death is, we are not afraid of life, we are not afraid of death. We will always be calm, we will always be peaceful. We will be in a position to face the problems of life, face the problem of death. Swami Vivekananda is able to get that total truth, obtain that absolute truth. And this is the future of Vedanta, Advaita. Everybody is none other than the same Atman, all-pervading Atman, all-pervading divinity. How are we to understand it? How are we to learn it? How are we to perceive it? How are we to grasp it? Let us imagine a situation of a room in which on all sides there are reflecting glasses. On the front there is a mirror, behind mirror, left, right, on all the four sides you have the reflecting glasses. Above and beneath also there are reflective glasses. Into that chamber of mirrors, suppose a man enters. He knows that it is a mirror. He knows that it is a room of mirrors. He knows the mirrors reflect you. The person goes in and he finds himself infinitely reflected, hundreds and thousands of himself in the mirror opposite to him. When he looks back, again he finds millions of his own reflection. On the right he is reflected, on the left he is reflected. Above you find the reflections, beneath you find the reflections. In the midst of the mirrors we stand and we enjoy ourselves being reflected in every mirror. Not one reflection, not two reflections, hundreds and thousands of reflections. There is only one person, that is myself, in the middle of the room, and I am amidst myself, reflected in the mirrors. There is only one, I am. And this myself is present in hundreds and thousands and millions of reflections. This is the truth. In the entire universe, there are hundreds of creatures, hundreds of animals, birds, beasts, stones, molecules, protons. In every one of them, I see myself. Self is reflected everywhere. Energy, the same energy is found everywhere. The same Atman is present everywhere. When the cinema is projected, the screen is present. The flood in the cinema does not wet the screen. The fire in the cinema does not burn the screen. The sword fight in the cinema does not tear the screen, because screen is the substratum. If there is a broken mirror, there too I find reflections. In a single mirror, I find myself reflected alone. If the mirror is broken to two, I find two reflections. If it is 1,000 pieces, 1,000 reflections. When they are placed opposite to each other, millions and millions of reflections. The entire nature is full of reflecting mirrors. They will not affect me. I will be seen in every one of them. If I smile, I find my reflections smiling. If I weep, I find the reflections weeping. And what is the basis? It is the same self. Self is reflected everywhere. What is the ultimate knowledge? It is the cinema of colors that changes. It is the screen which is the substratum does not change. The nature around me is full of mirrors. I am the person present in the midst. I am stable. I find my reflection everywhere. I know the truth. I have the knowledge of truth. I am absolutely absorbed in the eternal truth, and therefore I am peaceful. I know all this nature is nothing but to reflect myself. In the other words, self is all pervading, Atman is all pervading. This is the ultimate truth, Advaita. I am there everywhere, I am in everything, I am that. Tattvamasi, thou art that. Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman, the self, the Atman. I am that divinity, I find that divinity everywhere. This absolute knowledge of the universal, eternal truth makes me happy. Swami Vivekananda, in the footprints of Adi Shankara and who in the footprints of Upanishadic wisdom, everybody is a knower of the self. Unless we know the self, we cannot be peaceful. This is Advaita. And this Advaitic wisdom is the future of religion that gives us absolute bliss and peacefulness. Let us imagine Into that chamber of mirrors, a dog enters. The dog does not have the knowledge of truth. Dog does not know that the mirrors are there opposite to each other, facing each other. And when the dog enters, the dog finds another dog coming ahead, coming before. The jealousy, the hatred, the enmity of the dog comes to the surface. It looks at the other dog, it snarls, it barks, it tears, it becomes mad. The reason is it is ignorant of the truth. Ignorance is at the root of all evils. Enlightened wisdom, knowledge of absolute truth, that I am present everywhere, gives me the illumination, gives me the jubilation, gives me the contentment, satisfaction, gives me the peace of mind, gives me the sobriety, gives me the peace of mind. What is it that ultimately gives the beatitude or bliss? Knowledge. Jnana. The entire Upanishadic lore of this country is to highlight that enlightened state of mind wherein knowledge is present as the absolute truth. All the world is a stage, we are but actors. All the world is but nature reflecting the self. When we see ourselves in everyone, we are happy. The mother looks at herself in the baby and she is happy. When that attachment of I-ness is there, it gives us happiness. It is not in the negative sense. I am seen in my chair. I am seen in my table. I am seen in my wife. I am seen in my children. I am seen in my country. I am seen in the air. I am seen in the space. I am seen in the earth. When I am reflected everywhere, there is no duality. Non-duality, I find myself everywhere. There are two words, enlightenment, ignorance. Enlightenment is knowledge of the absolute truth. Ignorance is no knowledge of the truth. When there is ignorance, there is isolation. There is selfishness. There is segregation. There is sectarianism. There is everything dark. From this darkness of ignorance, we have to come out into that enlightened state of absolute truth. We have to come out. Just like the dog which is ignorant, we people will tear ourselves into pieces, unable to see the self everywhere reflected. Swami Vivekananda was able to see himself in the family and his self enlarged. He was able to find himself in all the people born in the great soil of Mother Bharat. And he was able to see himself reflected in all the places when he visited US. And finally, on the 4th of July, his self became so enlarged. His self was seen in everyone. There was no distinction between life and death. In the life, he was able to see himself. In the death, he was able to see himself. In the body, he was able to see himself. In the body of the entire nature, he was able to see himself. And Prajnanam Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi. This absolute truth of the infinite grandeur of self or Atman is sure to give us the total happiness, complete peace, absolute eternity. Swami Vivekananda, at a tender age, was able to realize that Brahman. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa trained him to be a jnani. Swami Vivekananda, with his keen observation, with his total self-scanning ability, was able to understand the Brahman, was able to be one with himself, attain that beatitude. May we all, by the grace of God Almighty, in the footprints of Swami Vivekananda, rise to be the true Advaitins. Adi Shankara was able to give that absolute truth, awaken our intellect, sharpen our intellect, and Jnana Yoga is the path of intellect, the path of intelligence to understand the absolute truth. Aham Brahmasmi. Tattvamasi. Prajnanam Brahma. Shivoham. 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 Om Namastri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Swamine Tapaharine.